Welcome to Releasing Trauma, a Survivor's Podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. I am a survivor of emotional bullying, rape, sexual assault, domestic abuse, and grief. After losing my husband in 2019, I set off on a new adventure to help other women release their trauma and create a life they can cherish. Each week, I will feature a guest expert or survivor to share their stories, tips, wisdom, and more. The goal is so that you can take away even just the smallest nugget of information you can use in your life right now to make a change, and to remind you that you're not alone. There is life after trauma, and you can move from victim to thriver and create a life you can cherish. Hi, welcome back to the show. I am your host, Tracy Osborne. With me today is Sariah Hastings. We are going to be talking about human trafficking, something we don't talk about much on this show. So I'm excited to get into this topic. Unfortunately, it's a huge, huge deal in the United States, and I'm sure all around the world. So I'm excited to talk about this a little bit. Sariah, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Tracy. I appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited to have you here. I always have the guests start out telling us a little bit about themselves, about their story. So we'll start there. Just tell us whatever you feel comfortable with.
Alrighty, thank you. Well, like Tracy said, my name is Sariah Hastings. I am an overcomer of human trafficking in the United States. My story is different from many other trafficked victims that have come out of human trafficking. I was trafficked for almost 20 years. I've been out of human trafficking for almost 10 years. And in that time, I experienced both spectrums of that life, one being the trafficker and one being the one that was trafficked. So it went back and forth, and it was very very everyday, trying to figure out if I was going to live or die. And that's why I call myself an overcomer, because I survived that life. I survived coming out of that life, and now I thrive and I live, and I help other women get out of that. I've overcome PTSD, which most people say they can't overcome without any drugs or any medical assistance. And I don't take any medication for PTSD, never did. I came over depression. I've been able to find a better source other than using drugs and therapy and all the other things that the world offers.
Well, I love that you call yourself an overcomer rather than just a survivor or a victim, because you definitely have overcome a nightmare that the majority of us listening couldn't even begin to imagine. And I'm so glad that we're talking today.
Amen. It's I tell most people that I don't like calling other survivors, because we survived that life. We're more of overcomer. If you're living a different life, you're not living in that lifestyle, then why call yourself a survivor? Call yourself an overcomer.
Right. I like that. I use the word thriver for my story. Because I'm no longer a survivor, I am a thriver. So,
amen.
Yeah, right along with you. So you said that you were able to overcome the PTSD and the depression and all that stuff without traditional means. Can you share with us how you were able to do that?
Well, like I told somebody the other day, it's called hope. And hope actually has a name, and that's Jesus Christ. And that's me, and like I say to everyone, teach his own. Everybody has their own religion, their own beliefs, and in their higher power or whatever. I was never raised as a Christian. I was never raised to believe in Jesus. So for me to tell you this is no gimmick, no host. But almost 10 years ago, a woman introduced me to a man named Jesus Christ. And since that day, in the very beginning, PTSD happened, flashbacks, different things. But the more that I read the word of God, the more I got to understand who this man named Jesus was, the more my PTSDs went away. There's a scripture that says that he renews your mind. He literally washes your mind and renews it every day. And that's by reading the word of God. And so when you read his word constantly, it's like you're putting on a new personality, a new person, and you're not of that old lifestyle. And so I no longer think about it. Every once in a while, I might, have a little like, oh, how am I going to deal with this? Or, and it almost tries to take you back into that lifestyle. But then I quickly remind myself, nope, that's not who I am. That's a person that I no longer consider myself that way. So, and it's a constant reminder, because we all go through it every single day, when people, no matter what kind of situation you get out, no matter if you have been, traumatized as a child, or, you've been in a domestic violence relationship, no matter what your lifestyle or your story is, we all have a story. It's how do you perceive it? How do you overcome that? And how do you defeat that enemy that we have constantly combating us? And so that's where we have to remind ourselves of who we are and who our God is.
Absolutely. And not everybody is Christian or follows the teachings of Jesus, but I think the underlying message here is turn it over to your higher power, whatever you want to call it, and that will definitely help to heal for sure. Instead of keeping it inside,
Right. Well, like I tell, because nowadays I go back out there, and I actually go and get women off the streets and talk to women and stuff. And I tell them the same thing that was asked me. What's so bad about trying this guy named Jesus? And what's the worst thing that can happen to you? You can either stay the same or you can change. There's many, and like I said, there's so many things out there that, self-help books and this, that, and I've seen it all. I've heard it all. But, it's funny when you try, and for me, it was relatable because I dealt with so many men in my life. I was just talking to a couple of people from an organization out here in New England that deal with anti-human trafficking. And, we were talking about the difference between New England and other states in the United States, because I was trafficked in 33 different states. And, I explained to them that for where I come from, it is not common for women to have children by their trafficker. Where out in New England, it is. And so I was explaining that, and so me having so many different traffickers, over the 20 years, and I was trafficked in 33 different states. When somebody presented it to me, like, give this man Jesus a try. Okay, well, I've given all these other men a try. I've given all these other drugs a try and all these other, programs to try. Why not try this man named Jesus? Let's see who he is, because that's how I approached it, is who is this guy? You talk about him, who is he?
Right. Now, is that what helped you to get out of being trafficked, or how did you get out of it, and how can other women get out of it?
So I called 211. And that's how my journey started. So some women don't know about 211. 211 is like 411. And in every state, it doesn't matter what state you're in. And so for me, there was that one person, and that one person was a woman who introduced me to Jesus. And from that moment on, she took me into a program, and not no 30-day program or 90-day program, but an actual almost 2-year program. And I went through that program. And after going through that program, in that time period, I had my child in that program. And then after I had my child and I graduated that program, that's when I went to Bible college, and I graduated with an associate's in biblical theology. And from there, my life has changed. You know, I work at the hospital. I'm in the HR department at a hospital. I help other people. I still help women get off the streets, and I still communicate with the woman um, who introduced me to Jesus. I still talk to her faithfully. I talked to her yesterday, matter of fact, and saw her. So, you know, that's kind of the steps that I took, and I had what a pillar of people to help me. So, what women who are starting at that first base, who do I reach out to? Who do you call? Who do I talk to? Like I tell most people, I have a website. Go on there. You need somebody. I know many people around the nation that have programs that have women that can go get you no matter what state you're in and can help you get into a safe place and get your life changed. That's if you want to.
Are there women who are in, I don't even know what to call it. It's not a lifestyle, but
it is.
Is it?
It is.
I mean, who, you know, are there women in there that I guess they become used to it and they don't know that there's a way out, so they just stay?
Yep. Yeah. You know, that for me, it was a lifestyle. You know, that's all I knew.
Right.
You know, my family telling me that the only way that I would ever be married is if I'm in a pimp and hoe relationship. You know, so there's these women, the way that these traffickers make it seem is like literally that this is all they're good for, that this is it, that they will never amount to anything. And that's how my traffickers made me feel, like this is it. You're only going to be good laying on your back. And nobody is ever going to believe you. Even now, Tracy, as I talk to you, I guarantee you that there are people that are listening to us and they will not believe my story. They won't believe me. You know, I've written a book, I've told my story, but there are still people who will not believe because either they don't want to accept what's going on in the United States, or they just plain think that I'm lying, which that's how traffickers make us believe and feel. So why share our story? Why open up? Why have a voice? And that's why most women, they just go in this lifestyle and this is what they deal with, and they try to make it through, you know. And I've talked to women who want to get out, but either they're so scared because their traffickers make them feel like the manipulation of, oh, I will kill you, oh, you're, you know, right, I'm going to do things to you, so that they are so afraid to come out of that lifestyle, or they feel like if they get out, they won't succeed to anything, they won't amount to nothing, so why even try to change their life?
I don't want to compare it to domestic violence because it's totally not.
It is.
In a way it is. Yeah, because that's what, you know, the abusers do. They beat you down and they break you to a point where you feel like you've got the best you're ever going to get.
Yep. The only difference, and I tell most people, the only difference between a person that is in a domestic violence and human traffic is the money. Yeah. That's it. If you literally take away a woman selling her body, all you have is a man beating a woman.
Right.
That's basically that's what people don't understand. And that's why sometimes it gets me frustrated, because everybody will bend backwards for somebody that is in a domestic violence situation, but sometimes won't take 2 seconds to look at the woman that's being a prostitute.
Right.
But they're not realizing that that woman had to go sleep with somebody or go walk on that street, because they don't realize that there was a gun pointed to her head saying that if you don't come back with $1,500 or with $2,000 or with $500 in my pocket, I'm going to kill you.
God, I can't even imagine what that would be like. How? Oh my gosh, I'm not even sure where to go. It's just such a nightmare, and it is so prevalent. You know, this is not something that is a secret. I know I live just outside Atlanta. Atlanta is known for being one of the biggest human trafficking hubs in the nation, and
right,
and it's terrifying. You know, because I have 4 girls, I have 2 grandbabies,
Mm-hmm.
and the thought of somebody taking them off the street and prostituting them out and beating them and all,
But it's not even just taking them off the streets. Like I tell right now, they're more savvy. I've been out of it for almost 10 years, and I had to keep up with the what we call I call the game. When I was in it, that's what we call the game, and I got to keep up with it. And so to let these girls know that I still know what's going on. And one of the things that they're doing now is you could have your child, you said you have 4 daughters, so you'd say one of your daughters is in college right now, right? It would just, hypothetically speaking, she's in college, and say her tuition or her student loans that she got for this year is $40,000 is what she owes, and
right.
she can't pay that, right? So now she comes to you, mom, I have this $40,000, and you go, baby, I can't, I only have 20. I only have 20 to give you. Okay, now she's stressing because she wants to pay this $20,000. Then she gets a text message and says, hey, do you have student loans you want to pay down? Reach out to this number and stuff. And next, she going on what she may think is an interview. She calls you up. Oh, mom, I got this job interview. They're going to, it sounds really good and blah, blah. And she goes on this interview because in today's world, nobody looks up nothing or calls nobody. They all about this text message and not hearing no voice and stuff, or not looking up to verify things. And so she has this, what she thinks is an interview. Mind you, how do you go dressed as an interview? In your best. You go dressed makeup, you have your nails done, you have an outfit, and the only thing you're carrying is your purse.
Yep.
And a phone. And next thing you know, you go into this spot, they talk to you, next thing you know, you're caught up, and there you go, she's off in human trafficking. That's what people don't understand. Human trafficking does not have a race, a face, an age. People think that, it's only for the low income families. No, I just had somebody who is an executive director of a company come to me because they read the back of my book and said, I think my stepdaughter, a person who is almost right under a CEO of a company, come to me and say, I think my daughter is in human trafficking. Can you help me? So it does not matter what kind of, who you are, what you about, where you are, your status is in the world. It doesn't matter what it is. It has no face. Human trafficking takes anybody who it pleases. And that's what frustrates me. And that's what makes me mad, because of the fact that I lived it, and now seeing the other side and knowing that there's a better life than what that life gives you. Because it's sad to say, but the hip hop world, the Black community, is one of the number one people who traffic women. They're, my traffickers, 95% of them were Black. So there's a lot of things that as a hip hop world you look at, and you see all they talk about is, drugs, sex, money, degrading women, how they going to get this, who's this girl is this, and they degrade women. And not only that, but black men degrade women. So at the end of the day, it's a constant degrading and putting down of women, and yet people support it and think that it's glamorous because these people, these men got fancy cars, and got the Versace and the Gucci and all these things, and yet they are doing things to women and not caring about their health or anything.
It's a billion-dollar industry.
Right, it really is. It's a multi-billion-dollar in United States alone.
Right.
It's the second largest. And that's why I told people during the COVID, people said, oh, COVID's killing people. So is human trafficking. The COVID killed a lot of women in human trafficking. And the sad part about it is nobody will ever know, because all these women, all these traffickers have nicknames, and you could come in, you may be known as Tracy to your family, but to the people, girls on the street, may be known as Candy or Sarah or Tiffany. You
Right.
may not be that name. So then if you're, gone, how do we know that you're not around? How
Yeah.
can your family, so there's a lot of things that go behind this, that people just don't understand and look at, that they really need to take a pay attention to. There's so many ways to notice if a woman's being trafficked. It's right. It's so plain in your face, and that's what people don't realize. Like, the traffickers are so bold that they'll do it in your face and nobody will say nothing. I did it. I just saw it a couple of months ago. I went and I was in the airport, and my child and I were sitting, and I was looking um at this man. It was a black man, and I was looking, and he had, a black woman with him, and it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I'm looking at him. He's looking at me, and he was giving me that look like, "What you looking at me for?" And I'm looking at him like, "I know what you're doing," but I ain't saying nothing because I had my kid with me. And so next thing I know, we get into the terminal and stuff, and we're sitting, and all of a sudden you see, now, mind you, so many people passed by, didn't even pay attention, but there's this woman screaming, this girl screaming at her boyfriend, right?
Hmm.
It looks like, and he's standing there, and he's like, "I'm done with you." And you can hear them arguing, bigger and arguing. She walk away, he walk away, she starts running. "No, I'm for real, 100. No, for real, for real. Trust me, trust me." And she running after him. Mind you, she has a short skirt on. She got a little plastic bag in her hand. He only has a backpack on. Next thing you know, we travel, we go to another state. He literally, I see him hand that girl off to another man, and he walks away. He just did a transaction
Oh,
right there in an airport, but yet thousands of people walked past and never saw anything. I couldn't
didn't
say
even
anything.
notice.
I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything because I had my child. So I had to look at my son. I said, I told my son, I said, "You need to pray for that girl." I said, "She needs Jesus right now. You need to pray for protection over her because she's in a situation." That's all I could say at that moment because I
Yeah.
couldn't go into that. But usually, if my son wasn't there, I would have went and approached that situation, and I would have stepped in, because one,
Right.
they're in the public, and they're not going to do anything when they're in public, because now they're bringing too much attention, and traffickers don't like attention. So if you bring attention to them, they'll back down. But since nobody pays attention and sees stuff, plain as day right there. But nobody's minding it. They just doing their own thing. And that's
Oh,
where people are not understanding. You could tell by a woman when she looks down at the ground,
yeah.
if she doesn't say a whole lot of words to you, um, if somebody else is answering for her, there's all kinds, almost the same type of indicators that you find for somebody who is being in a domestic violence relationship,
Yep.
is the same as a traffic situation.
Wow. Wow. This has been unfortunately fascinating. And not in a good way, but just in an informational way. What are, as we wrap up, what are some tips to keep our girls safe? Those of us that with daughters and stepdaughters, granddaughters, whatever, how do we keep these girls safe?
So one, never go out alone. I remember I had an interview with somebody in New England after a woman who got murdered by a police officer. And I explained to them that um, at all times, women should know where, if your daughter is saying going to the grocery store, or somebody should know where they're at, at all times. It's not to keep tabs on them per se, but it's to keep them protected if they are by themselves or if they're traveling and things like that. To always, I do that myself. I'll go to Boston, and um, my pastor and the woman that introduced me to Jesus, they'll say to me, "You let me know when you get there. Let me know when you're leaving. Let me know if you got a girl in the car. Just keep in contact with me, at all times." It's just so that you know what's going on, because if anything happens, then you'll know, you'll have trails of them. Also, too, another way to keep them safe is at the end of the day, letting them know what signs to look for. In my book, No More Games, I explain my story in a way that a mother can identify with her daughter. Okay, when a man approaches you and start giving you nice compliments and starts wanting to take you to a party or start wanting to do things, you need to ask them, where is it at? Who's going to be there? Because you don't know if you're walking into a party that there's strippers or whatever. You don't know what's going on, and there was many times that I walked into parties where I basically became a piece of meat and I had to be naked and walk up and down in front of men and stuff, and not knowing what kind of parties I was walking into. So always, as for mothers, for parents, always find out what your children are doing. But also the main key for a parent to be with for their children is encourage them. Don't demean them. When I grew up, people, my family, my parents, they would all call me fat. You're this, you're that. They would always put me down. So when a man approached me and said, oh, you're nice, oh, you're pretty, I believed him over my family. Because why? He was saying words that I wasn't used to. So as parents, we have to encourage our children, you're this, you're going to be this, never to belittle them, because then when somebody approaches them, that's saying something that doesn't sound out of character because they've been raised a certain way, then they'll identify, oh, no, you're trying to get me caught up in something.
Okay, that makes sense. Well, Sariah, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. And before we go, how can listeners find you?
Well, they can check me out on my personal website. That's Sariah, SARIAH.info. They can check me out on Facebook at Sariah Hastings. You can message me if you have any questions, or also too, if you are trying to find programs for ladies or you need help for anybody. In my book, No More Games, it gives you a bunch of organizations that you can reach out to.
Fantastic. And listeners, you know the drill. We'll have all of Sariah's contact information on the website. Just go to releasingtraumapodcast.com and pull up Sariah's episode. All her contact information, as well as the link to her book, will be there. So Sariah, again, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, and just, opening our eyes a bit to this lifestyle that we just want to sweep under the rug and pretend doesn't exist.
Yes, thank you for having me.
And listeners, thank you for joining us. We'll talk to you in the next show.